and cabbage skillet. I'm in my kitchen today. It's a cold out, so I got a few layers on, but we will have a warm meal to warm us up. So to get started with our cooking demo, you should be able to see the recipe on that Google Drive. I've also put it in the Teams chat if you want to access it later. Maybe you're just here to watch, and then later on you will be making it on your own. All right, so I just read the chat box. We will look forward to seeing you soon, Philip. So to start, what I'm going to do is have out my pan. I'm going to need ground chicken for that. I'm excited to try this recipe with you today because I personally am not always the biggest fan of ground chicken or turkey. So I'm loving this recipe. It kind of disguises the flavor of that a little bit. So to start, what we're going to need is a separate dish for our sauce. We're going to mix that sauce first, then we're going to ground up that ground chicken and then add that in. So for our sauce, what we're going to need is we are going to need 1/4 cup of creamy peanut butter. And I would love for everyone to put in the chat box what type of peanut butter they use, because I know it's kind of a big topic of natural, not natural. This is the natural Jif. It does have a little bit of that added sugar in there, which I try to avoid, but maybe I just haven't found the right type of natural peanut butter yet. But I just am not the biggest fan of the peanut butter. It separates, it gets weird. So if somebody has a good one out there, they'd love to recommend in the chat box. I would love to try it as well because, like I said, there's something about this texture of Jif. They've got it figured out. They know their peanut butter. So what I'm doing is just adding 1/4 cup of this peanut butter into there. Then we're going to use this same 1/4 cup for our soy sauce today. So put that back on. And my dog is definitely watching me. He's right over here. He is usually gets a little bit of peanut butter whenever I open it up, so he knows. But today he won't be able to get his serving of peanut butter. I'll save it for him afterwards. It's something I have unconditioned, or he has learned to do, and I didn't even mean for him to learn it. It just happened. And for our soy sauce today, I am using a tamari sauce. I could be saying that wrong, everyone. I apologize if I am. But this is just a gluten-free option to that soy sauce. And it has soybeans in it, salt, and vinegar. So it tastes the same, just a gluten-free option. If you get the low sodium soy sauce at your store, sometimes it is gluten-free. But a lot of times the full soy sauce traditional one is not gluten-free. I am a gluten-free person, so I got to make sure that I get the correct one when I'm at the store or when people are cooking for me. I always have to double check. So this is a tamari sauce. You can also use coconut aminos. That's a popular one that you can find pretty easily. I'm going to scooch this over and we're going to get to chopping up some garlic. With our garlic, it recommends that we are going to use 3 cloves. I know that every clove is a little bit different size. So if you really love the flavor of garlic, what you can do is you can grab 4. Sometimes I throw in an extra one myself because I love garlic, but be warned that that will have a more garlic flavor for your end result. So I'm just going to declove 3 here. I'm going to choose bigger ones, like I said. Sometimes, you get really small one, and that's not true to the recipe necessarily. So I've got my 3 cloves on my cutting board. I use a garlic press. When you have garlic, the more that you squish it, the better the flavor of the garlic. So if you just chop it up, make sure that you're taking the side of that knife and you really smash it down before you chop it because it gets more of that garlic flavor in there. And that's why I use a garlic press. So with my press, I just push my garlic in there and then I smash it in to the bowl. And we're going to do 3 of those just like that. A lot of times you can buy garlic already chopped for you, so you don't have to do any of these steps that I'm doing. That's kind of a hack if you hate the process of garlic. I do know that it sometimes gets in your skin. So if you don't like it, you can buy it pre-chopped and minced for you. And this is our last garlic clove. I did read something about garlic to how to tell if it's fresher the other day. So how you tell if it's fresher is the bottom of this. If these, I guess you could call them stems, are still attached, it is from the US. And if it's not, they cut off the stems. And so the way you can get a fresher one is getting one from the US. So look for the stems on your garlic. You want those on there. I'm not guaranteeing that it's everyone, but that was just what I've heard. So I always try to look for the ones with the stems because I know they came from a little closer location, hopefully giving it a little bit fresher. All right, we've got our 3 cloves of garlic in there. Not going to need that garlic press anymore. Let's see what's next on the recipe. I'm going to follow it very closely today. I don't want to mess it up. All right, and then we've got 2 tablespoons of honey. I buy honey from a local honey farmer, I guess you could say, or bee farmer, because I have really bad allergies. So if you buy local honey, the bees go out into the allergens that you have and then they make the honey. And it's supposed to be able to help you, I can't get this open, help your allergens kind of treat your body to that honey. Oh, I might have to put this one under the, this is my strength training coming in just to open my honey for a cooking demo. So I'm gonna use 1 tablespoon of this. My honey is a little crystallized, as you can see, but that's okay. It still tastes the same. But local honey is something I would recommend if you have allergens, because those bees can help you fight off those pollens and allergens a little bit more natural. I actually think I got this one in Palisade, so it's not quite local to me. It's local to where my sister lives, but they have some good honey and peaches over there in Palisade if you are a Coloradan. So I got my tablespoon of honey. It's going to go in here. Scoop that out. And the next thing we're going to do is our ginger. Again, I like to add extra ginger. I like the way it tastes, but if you don't like ginger or if you don't like anything in this recipe, feel free to take that out. I'm actually not going to do cilantro. I do not like it at all, so I'm not going to be putting it into mine today. So I've just taken a piece of garlic, I've cut it in half, and I'm going to just shave the outsides. I think the easiest way to deal with garlic is to grate it. So I'm going to use a mini cheese grater. You're seeing it here in a second. You can also just really wash this, get the outside of the ginger. It's not bad for you. Leave a little bit more fiber in it, but there's nothing wrong with it. You can also just chop it just like the garlic. I got lots of tools for everything, it seems like. A lot of dishes at the end. All right. We are going to, I'm just going to eyeball this one. We're going to do 1 tablespoon of this garlic. I have this little mini cheese grater and I just grate it into that sauce. So I'm going to get a little bit of that garlic flavor. This isn't garlic, this is ginger. Getting that ginger flavor. I also like to cut this up and put it into my tea. This time of year, sometimes we can get those colds, and ginger is a really good anti-inflammatory. So it helps kind of decrease that inflammation in your throat. Sometimes I'll put it in with a little bit of tea, just hot water, and a few more scrapes here. And we should be good on our ginger. All right, I think there's 2 more things left in our recipe. We'll see what we've got. We got honey, rice vinegar, and sesame oil. Rice vinegar here. They found this at King Soopers. It's not too crazy of an ingredient. You should be able to find it. It was in the Asian food aisle. We're going to use 1 tablespoon of that. And then we're going to do 1 tablespoon of the sesame oil. I actually cook with sesame oil a lot whenever I'm doing this style of cooking. It has a high heat threshold. So if you're searing steaks or if you're trying to get that really high temperature, when you use kind of olive oil, it can turn into a carcinogen at a very high temperature. So you want to make sure that you are using a high heat threshold oil. And this is, as you can see, the first time I've used this one. I ran out of my other one. 1 tablespoon of that. I am going to put a little bit of this in the pan as well to sear that chicken. Again, it's a really good option for, instead of olive oil, avocado oil, coconut, etc. And it has a good flavor, I'd say. A lot of salad dressings, if you make them on your own, use sesame oil and that rice vinegar. All right, that is it for the sauce. So I'm going to stir that up. Once I've stirred that up, we're going to start to brown our chicken. I'm going to change camera angles for us, and then we will be good to start the rest of our meal today. I'm also excited about this meal because I really like cabbage. It's a hard one to get into recipes, though. There's not too many cabbage recipes. Besides coleslaw, coleslaw is a good one. And I actually got today a coleslaw mix. Our recipe calls for cabbage and carrots. And so I just found a mix that had cabbage and carrots already in it. And so that's going to be your coleslaw mix. All right, I'm going to show you what the consistency of this sauce looks like. It's a little funky, but it's going to heat up and that peanut butter is going to kind of diffuse a little bit. So it's a little chunky right now, but we will get it heated up in that peanut butter will melt down. So we're going to set that to the side while I was up here. I should have changed camera angles on us here. So let's see, where is that little button? All right, maybe I'm not going to change camera angles on us. When I am sharing my screen, it's not showing up. So what I'll do is, I bet because I'm recording, I'm going to change it. Hold on, everybody. All right, and I'm going to start the recording again. We'll have two parts here. So you should be able to see my pan now. I've got my ground chicken here. It was the only one that King Soopers had, so nothing too crazy about this ground chicken. I know with beef there is sometimes a lean to 8% fat. That's what this one is. We're going to open that up. And we're going to get started in our pan. So I want a medium heat. Again, I don't want it to be too hot because I don't want to burn that ground chicken. I'm going to add a little bit of that sesame oil in there, starting the searing process off. Once we sear our chicken, then we're going to put it aside and we're going to heat up our coleslaw mix in there. What we were kind of doing is blanching it. So we're getting that start of that heat process. Right. When you are using, I'm going to use a very sensitive to heat pan. You want to be making sure that you're not overdoing it. And also, you don't want to use any metal utensils on your cooking pans, especially those expensive Teflon ones. We want to keep those nice, using a nice, I'm going to use a rubber spatula and a plastic. Oh, this is a spatula too. Spatula is the rubber spatula, and then a pancake spatula is what I'll call this one. So my pan is heating up pretty quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and add this over into there. Adding that ground chicken in there now, and we're just going to, as we do with any kind of meat, we're just going to chop it up with our spatula, and we're going to get that nice brown all the way around. When you are searing meats, with ground chicken, it doesn't necessarily matter, but when we're searing other meats, we want to make sure that you have a dry surface. So I always blot my chicken with a paper towel, because what that's doing is that's allowing a sear to actually happen. Instead of when that chicken breast has a little bit of moisture on it, you're actually boiling that meat. You're causing that water to then heat up inside and around that meat, and you're not getting a true sear. So you want to make sure that you're really getting a dry meat if you are going for a true sear on that. All right, well, that's heating up. I'm going to open up my coleslaw mix. And again, if we were using one that didn't have, I'll scooch up one more degree here. If we were using one that didn't have carrots in it, we would be chopping up those carrots. I would love to know if people like or dislike carrots. I'm not going to lie, they're not my favorite. All right, just going to prep this bag open. And we're getting that nice sear on our ground chicken. All right, bag is open. Searing is going on side to side. This is the part, I will be honest with you guys. Ground chicken is really good for you. Ground turkey is really good for you. But this part right here is what I do not like. I don't like the phase where it turns from pink to brown. Seems funky to me, but I'm just was growing up a meat and potatoes, red meat and potatoes gal. So the chicken is something I try to incorporate, but you know, it's definitely hard. If it's not your favorite, but this recipe, I will say it disguises that ground chicken flavor. Good. And that's just going to continue to sear. Once we get that sear on, we will go ahead and remove it. Add in our cabbage. I'm going to get a little bit of chicken broth because I tried this before with just kind of searing that cabbage. And it was really hard, especially with this pan that I have, to not get it to stick. So just making sure that that isn't happening, I'm going to add a little bit of chicken broth. It's going to be a little more of a blanch than a sear of that cabbage, but same idea. And while we're waiting, I'll go ahead and check the Teams chat, see if we've got anything fun going on in there. Food co-op grinds the peanuts. Has anyone tried, I saw it in Hawaii, we were just there for Christmas, a macadamia nut butter they had there? And obviously macadamia nuts have a pretty high fat content, but it seemed like of all of the nut butters, that would be the best one possible. I was pretty excited that they had that. It was pretty tasty, I will say. Maybe not an everyday butter for us all. But the peanut butter, they got it figured out. I mean, peanuts are good butter. All right, so as you can see, I've got a little bit of brown going on. Probably take a few more minutes here just to get that brown through. You want to make sure that chicken is at a temperature of 165 when you're cooking it. Same with the ground. There's nothing different about it just because it is kind of combined. That doesn't mean that you don't want that nice temperature of 165 through the chicken. So at any point, if you feel uncomfortable in any sort of meat that you're making, feel free to just grab out a meat thermometer. We use this all the time. It doesn't mean that you're failing or you don't know how to cook if you use that meat thermometer. It's better to be safe. And something that I've started to do is look up what medium rare or medium for burgers and stuff is, because I have a tendency to get that overdone, the well done burger, and that's going to be right at that higher temperature. So you can use a meat thermometer to get all different types of rareness in your burgers and your steaks. Probably not chicken. We want to keep that one nice and warm, but other things like that, you can keep that meat thermometer handy. We got a smoker last year and we've been really using our smoker a lot. It gives a good flavor, especially to chicken. Again, like that doesn't have a lot of flavor. When we use our Camp Chef, we do some hickory pellets. It gives that chicken a good flavor. You could put it on stuff and it doesn't necessarily taste like just a traditional chicken breast. All right, so it looks like I've got that color through and through. There's a few pieces that need a little bit longer, but we're going to combine it all again. But overall, I've got a nice brown consistency through that. I'm going to move this over to a bowl, and then we're going to use that little bit of chicken juices, I'll say, along with our chicken broth to create our seared cabbage effect. All right. A few more pieces in here. I'm going to go for, don't want to lose any of those, so I'm going to just scooch it out with my spatula, and we are going to keep that juice in there because we're going to use that to sear. All it is really chicken broth, which I'm adding in anyways. We're going to place that to the side, and we've got our bag of cabbage here, and I'm just going to add that into my pot. I removed it from the heat because that was a little bit warmer than I want it. We don't want it to burn that cabbage. We're just going to sear this carrot and cabbage mix. Just like spinach, this is going to get a little bit smaller than we originally started with. So you may want to add a little bit more if you are feeding that larger family, because this is going to shrink up a little bit. Good. And again, we're just stirring that up. We got medium, and we'll let that rest. When you are all cooking dinner, are you guys podcast people? Do you watch TV usually? Maybe none of the above. You got to do homework with some kiddos and you're multitasking. For me, I'm a TV watcher. I like shows. At the end of the day, I usually have my iPad up while I'm watching TV. All right, well, this cabbage is stirring. The recipe told us to combine our sauce that we made. What I'm going to do is see, as you can see, I got a lot of cabbage in here, but it's going to sift down. I'm going to push the cabbage to one side, and with that cabbage being on one side, then I'm going to heat up my sauce in here. So it's like a 2-for-1 pan. Lost a piece of cabbage there. So I'm going to add that sauce in now. That peanut butter is going to get warmed up now. So it's going to get a better consistency. As you know, melted peanut butter is a little bit smoother than when we have it a little bit colder. And it is pretty cold in my house today, so it's also probably getting a little chilly that way. All right, so now I'm going to use my spatula and I'm going to stir. Or if you had a whisk, you could whisk this together. I would recommend, again, a rubber whisk. We don't want to be having that whisk on our metal pans. It scrapes it. Little pieces of that can get in here. So this is just going to be on the side while my cabbage is cooking down. If you wanted the cabbage to cook a little bit quicker, you could add a top. I'm going to make sure that peanut sauce does not burn, so I'm going to keep a lid off. But if you are able to just walk away, you could leave that lid on for a few minutes, let that cabbage really stir down. It's already getting much smaller. Right. Now we've got that nice sauce you can see there, and I'm going to begin to intermingle it with, that's probably a word, right? Intermingle. I'm going to start to stir it together with that cabbage, and then I'm going to add that turkey back in. We'll have a nice little stir fry going on. And this would be a great recipe. As you can see, if you have not too many people in your family, this is not going to be just one meal for me. This could probably feed 4 people at a time. So we want to be making sure that you're saving it if you do use this large of a serving. Something I've been trying to do lately is just make smaller serving sizes because my husband and I, we're good about leftovers, but sometimes for 4 days in a row, you don't want to eat the same thing. So we will make less. And I did try to do that this holiday season where I would half a recipe of sweets. So cookies, I wouldn't end up with 36 cookies for just my husband and I if we were feeling cookies one time. So I would make half as many, and then we wouldn't have the whole leftover cookies. So I don't know about everyone else, but with me, if it's in the house, I usually eat it. I hate wasting food. So for me, I like to make sure that I'm not letting those cookies go to waste. So if there was no cookies in the house to be eaten, I would not necessarily feel like I had to eat them. All right, that's going to continue to stir, and I'm going to switch over. I'll just position the camera a little bit differently. We're going to cut up some onions for the top now. So I've got green onions. Green onions here, I've already rinsed them off. I got them at the store this morning. The ends are always a little bit down here. The ends are always a little bit, I don't want to say if they're dead, but you can use them if you'd like. I just don't like the idea of the ends, so I'm not going to use those. We're going to just add a little bit of these green onions. This is more of a garnish going on the top, getting that onion flavor. Perfect. I'm going to add just about half of my strands. The recipe calls for a certain amount, but I think an amount of onion is very personal. Depends on if you're a very oniony person or not. So I'm just going to add those in. I'm going to let those cook down a little bit with the combination. And then I'll scooch us in here so we can really see what's happening in our pan. So as you can see, I've got those green onions adding in. The peanut sauce is getting mixed up very well through the cabbage. Get those green onions mixed in there. Having a little overflow. This was one of the biggest pans I had. So if you have a bigger pan, I would recommend using a little bit bigger. There is some liquid in the bottom. That is, again, the liquid from that chicken broth and that cabbage shrinking down. So you guys saw before, my cabbage was all the way to the top, and now I'm kind of melting it down. It's getting rid of that liquid, but that's just going to be in the bottom. That's going to thicken up as you cook this, so don't be worried. If it is a little too thick, maybe you went a little too overboard with that chicken broth, you could always add in some flour or cornstarch, and that's just going to make a thicker sauce for you. Depends on how much kind of carrots, if you used a whole carrot instead of the shreds of carrot like I did, all that is going to be a variable. All right, continue to mix this up. Smells peanut goodness. All right, I'm going to stir 2 more times, and I think honestly my cabbage is pretty cooked down. All right, 1 and 2, perfect. All right, got a nice combination here. I'm gonna put it into a bowl, show you guys what it looks like in that final product. If you'd like to add that garnish onto the top, you can add that garnish on the top. And as you can see, there's lots and lots of leftovers for us to have throughout your week. You can have this for lunch every day this week. I'm probably going to add a little bit of soy sauce on the top just for that extra little bit of flavor, but overall this is our stir fry mix we've made. Smells really good. Got that good cabbage and ginger peanut flavor in there. All right, I'm going to try it. I forgot to bring out a fork to try it. Once we try it, I'll catch up on the chat. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Oh, one thing I will say, the recipe called to add salt, and there is so much salt in this tamari sauce that I didn't add any salt. So don't be afraid to add salt. Just be mindful of that. I try to watch my sodium intake. All right, going in. I loved cooked cabbage. I'm very excited about this meal. All right, everyone. That is it for our cooking demo. Make sure I don't choke here. I hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday. Next month, we'll be doing this again third Wednesday of the month. Ethan or Shannon will be leading us through that. So look in the chat box for the recipe we're going to use, and I hope that you all have a great rest of your day. I'm going to turn the recording off and answer any questions if we have them.